Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning after surviving Auschwitz and 3 other concentration camps. He watched his fellow prisoners face the ultimate test of human nature. Some collapsed into despair, others became unbreakable. What he witnessed became the foundation for an entirely new understanding of human resilience. The philosophy Frankl developed from this living hell contains profound wisdom about meaning, choice, and what makes us truly unbreakable. These aren't just ideas about surviving extreme suffering. They're insights that can transform how you face any struggle in your life. Let me show you why. Life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. Before the camps, Frankl was a student of both Freud and Adler, 2 giants of psychology who believed they had cracked the code of human motivation. Freud said, "We're driven by the pursuit of pleasure." Adler argued it was the will to power. But in the concentration camps, Frankl watched these theories crumble. He saw prisoners who had lost every conceivable pleasure: food, comfort, safety, dignity. He witnessed men stripped of all power, reduced to numbers, controlled in every possible way. According to Freud and Adler, these people should have collapsed entirely. Yet some didn't just survive. They found ways to maintain their humanity, even to help others. What separated those who endured from those who gave up wasn't access to pleasure or power. It was having something to live for, a manuscript to rewrite, a loved one to see again, a mission to complete. Meaning became the difference between life and death. We live in the most pleasure-saturated, power-obsessed era in history, yet depression and anxiety are epidemic. The solution isn't more pleasure or power. It's discovering what your life is asking of you. But this raises an uncomfortable question. If meaning matters more than comfort, what does that say about how we should face our struggles? You cannot control what happens to you in life, but you can always control what you will feel and do about what happens to you. Frankl learned this lesson in the most brutal way imaginable. The Nazis controlled when he woke up, what he ate, where he worked, even whether he lived or died. They stripped away his identity, literally tattooing a number on his arm to replace his name. His life's work, a manuscript he'd spent years writing, was destroyed when he was arrested. But here's what they couldn't control: his thoughts. In the camps, Frankl would mentally give lectures to imaginary audiences about his experiences. He would think about his wife, constructing detailed conversations with her. He even found moments of beauty, watching a sunset through the barracks window, appreciating the way light fell on a fellow prisoner's face. This wasn't delusion or escapism. It was the deliberate exercise of the one freedom that remained, the freedom to choose his internal response. While other prisoners became consumed with hatred, despair, or bitterness, all understandable reactions, Frankl chose to observe, to learn, to maintain his humanity. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything's fine. It's about recognizing that between what happens to you and how you respond, there's a space, and in that space lies your power. You might not control the diagnosis, the breakup, the job loss, or the family crisis, but you always control what you do next. This goes against everything our culture teaches us about human nature. We're told we're products of our environment, victims of our circumstances. But Frankl witnessed something that shattered this assumption. A human being is not one thing among others. Things determine each other, but man is ultimately self-determining. What he becomes, within the limits of endowment and environment, he has made out of himself. The concentration camps became, in Frankl's words, a living laboratory, the ultimate test of human nature. Here were thousands of people facing identical conditions: starvation, brutality, the constant threat of death. If environment truly determined behavior, everyone should have responded the same way. Instead, Frankl witnessed the full spectrum of human possibility. He watched some prisoners steal bread from dying men, inform on fellow inmates, abandon all moral restraint, but he also saw others share their last piece of bread, comfort the dying, maintain their dignity even while being beaten. Same conditions, completely different choices. The camps proved that humans aren't just products of their circumstances. We're self-determining beings who choose who to become, even within the harshest constraints. As Frankl put it, he watched some of our comrades behave like swine while others behaved like saints. The difference wasn't their situation, it was their decisions. This is perhaps the most radical idea in all of psychology. You are not your past, your trauma, your circumstances, or your conditioning. You have the power to determine who you become, not unlimited power. Frankl acknowledges the limits of endowment and environment, but real power nonetheless. Every moment, you're choosing the person you're becoming. But if we have this power of self-determination, what do we do when life feels hopeless? When we're facing situations we genuinely cannot change? We must never forget that we may also find meaning in life even when confronted with a hopeless situation, when facing a fate that cannot be changed. For what then matters is to bear witness to the uniquely human potential at its best, which is to transform a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. Frankl wrote about a particularly harrowing moment in the camps when he was forced to give up his life's work, a manuscript containing his theories about meaning and psychology. The guards destroyed it, along with all his possessions. In that moment, he faced a choice: let this loss destroy him, or find meaning in the very act of losing everything. He chose transformation. Instead of mourning what was gone, he began mentally reconstructing his work, refining his ideas based on what he was now living through. The camps became his laboratory. His suffering became his curriculum. The very experience that took away his manuscript gave him something far more profound, lived proof of his theories about human resilience. Frankl watched fellow prisoners make similar transformations, men who became sources of comfort for others despite their own agony, prisoners who shared their bread even while starving, people who maintained their humanity precisely because they chose to find meaning in their hopeless situation. This doesn't mean suffering is good or that we should seek it out. It means that when suffering is inevitable, when the diagnosis comes, when the relationship ends, when dreams collapse, we still have a choice. We can let it break us, or we can let it transform us into something we never could have become without it. The meaning isn't in the suffering itself, it's in what we choose to do with it. But this transformation isn't automatic. It requires a specific kind of freedom that most people don't even know exists. A human being is a finite thing, and his freedom is restricted. It is not freedom from conditions, but it is freedom to take a stand towards the conditions. In the camps, Frankl discovered that most people misunderstand what freedom actually means. The prisoners had lost every conventional form of freedom. They couldn't leave, couldn't speak freely, couldn't choose their food, their work, or even when to sleep. By every normal definition, they were completely unfree. But he observed, even in these conditions, some prisoners remained freer than their guards. How? Because true freedom isn't the absence of constraints. It's the ability to choose your stance toward whatever constraints you face. He watched prisoners who, despite being physically enslaved, maintained an inner freedom that their captors could never touch. They chose dignity over degradation, compassion over bitterness, hope over despair. Meanwhile, many of the guards, who had all the external freedom in the world, were enslaved by hatred, fear, and ideology. They became prisoners of their own making. We spend so much energy trying to eliminate problems from our lives, trying to create perfect conditions where we'll finally be free to be happy. But that's not how freedom works. You'll never be free from all conditions. There will always be constraints, problems, difficulties. Real freedom is learning to take a meaningful stand within whatever conditions you find yourself in. Humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. The attempt to develop a sense of humor and to see things in a humorous light is some kind of a trick learned while mastering the art of living. Yet it is possible to practice the art of living even in a concentration camp, although suffering is omnipresent. This might seem impossible, finding humor in a concentration camp, but Frankl discovered that the prisoners who survived weren't just the physically strongest or the most optimistic. Many were those who could still find moments of absurdity, irony, even laughter in their circumstances. He and a fellow prisoner would make a pact. Each day, they would try to find something amusing to tell each other. A guard's ridiculous behavior, an absurd situation, anything that could make them smile for even a moment. It wasn't denial or callousness. It was a deliberate act of resistance against despair. Frankl realized that humor served a crucial psychological function. It created distance between himself and his suffering, allowing him to observe his situation rather than be consumed by it. When you can laugh at something, even darkly, you're asserting a form of superiority over it. You're saying, "This cannot touch the core of who I am." Humor isn't about making light of serious problems. It's about refusing to let those problems dominate your entire existence. When you can find the absurd in your struggles, when you can laugh at your own neuroses and fears, you're exercising a form of spiritual freedom. You're proving that whatever you're facing hasn't conquered your ability to see beyond it. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. In the camps, Frankl noticed that prisoners who constantly asked, "Why is this happening to me?" or "What's the point of all this suffering?" were the ones most likely to give up hope. They were waiting for life to provide them with answers, with meaning, with justification for their pain. But the prisoners who survived had unconsciously made a crucial mental shift. Instead of demanding that life explain itself to them, they began asking what life was demanding of them. A dying prisoner might ask, "How can I comfort my bunkmate?" A starving man might wonder, "How can I maintain my dignity even in these conditions?" They stopped being passive victims waiting for meaning to be delivered, and became active participants in creating it. Frankl realized this was the fundamental error of modern psychology and modern life. We've been trained to see ourselves as questioners, demanding answers from existence. But the truth is reversed. Each moment, each situation, each challenge is life asking us a question, and we answer not with words, but with our choices, our actions, our character. Stop asking, "What's my purpose?" and start asking, "What is this situation asking of me?" Stop demanding, "Why did this happen?" and start wondering, "How should I respond?" Life isn't a riddle to be solved. It's a question to be lived. And every day, every challenge, every opportunity is life asking you, who will you choose to be? This leads us to the final insight, one that reveals the ultimate secret of becoming unbreakable. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This was Frankl's final revelation from the camps, the synthesis of everything he had learned about human resilience. He watched thousands of prisoners face the ultimate test, situations that genuinely could not be changed. They couldn't escape, couldn't fight back, couldn't negotiate their way out. They were completely powerless over their external circumstances. But in that absolute powerlessness, Frankl witnessed the emergence of a different kind of power. When prisoners accepted that they couldn't change their situation, something remarkable happened. They discovered they could change themselves within it. They could become more compassionate, more courageous, more wise. They could transform their very character through their response to unchangeable circumstances. This became the cornerstone of Frankl's entire philosophy. The camps taught him that the last and most profound human freedom is the ability to transform yourself in the face of the immutable. When external change is impossible, internal change becomes everything. Viktor Frankl entered the concentration camps as a young psychiatrist with theories about human behavior. He emerged as living proof that no external force, no matter how powerful, can determine who you choose to become. That choice remains forever yours.